I have a wonderful guest with me today. I don't know if you know him. This is Clifton Duncan. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, what's going on, Adam? Thanks for having me. And hello, friends out there.
So I met Clifton when he was doing the Timcast show. What was this? 4 or 5 months ago now? It's been a while.
Yeah,
7 months?
February? Yeah, I don't even remember anymore. It's unbelievable.
What is time, right, Clifton?
Well, we can get into that, Adam.
What's up? We can get into that?
What is time?
What is time? Well, it's relative.
Well, there is that.
Yeah. So, we have both our own red pill journeys. Mine was very public.
Very rapid too.
I don't know if it was rapid. People actually say that, but I think my position was already I was already there. I was already ready to pay attention. I feel like I knew a lot of the information. I felt like I was already being lied to. I didn't trust the government before I became red pilled, as they say,
right.
And it just kind of, it clicked into place it was more like, oh, the curtain got pulled back. And I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't really a surprise. This all makes sense to me, so
right.
It wasn't new. What about you? Were you were a default Democrat? Is it safe to assume?
Yeah, what did I don't know if you and your viewers know who Evan Sayet is, but he gave a great speech for the for the Heritage Foundation some years ago.
Okay.
And anybody could look it up. It's actually a really, really good speech. I don't agree with quite everything or all of his assessments, but he the speech came to be known as like the sort of what is it? The unified theory of liberalism or whatever it is. But basically, he said maybe it was Andrew Breitbart who said a default factory setting is for people to have this liberal worldview.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, that's sort of what I subscribed to. I hadn't thought about it that much. It's just that. And I think what's so insidious about it is that people become so shielded because I think of the typical day in the life of, maybe your average American teenager. They get up in the morning, they go to school, and their teachers are talking about all this stuff from one specific point of view. Their favorite rock stars, singers, athletes, they're espousing this particular point of view. They get on social media and, as I call them, the reality cartel, and they are forcing a particular sort of view, a point of view on people.
Yeah.
They watch the news if they watch the news, and that also with some obvious exceptions are also putting forth this kind of opinion. So the music we listen to, the culture around us, we're just embedded in this idea that there's only one way to view the world, only one thing works. And once you break out of that, you can't go back in. And I think for me, I think my main moment, and a lot of people don't really understand this, and it had been building gradually just because of personal changes I was making. But I think the whole Gamergate fiasco in August of 2014, when I remember the day exactly when it all broke, and I just so happened to be in the right place at the right time to watch it unfold, because originally it was just it was basically a sex scandal and internet drama. And I was like, ooh, this is really interesting and fascinating. But then it expanded and it expanded and it became so much more than that.
Yeah.
And people tried to kind of downplay it and say, well, it's just video games. Who cares? And it's like, yes, exactly. It's just video games. So why, if it's just video games, am I being subjected to these op-eds who are saying, talking about racism and sexism and marginalized people and how, men are toxic and yada, yada, yada. So then all the sort of hallmarks that typify and characterize I honestly don't even know what to refer to it as, but I guess the social justice sort of standard operating procedures or protocols were in play. And one of them that got to me the most was the suppression of any kind of discussion, no matter how reasoned, no matter how polite, no matter how rational. If you asked about this on any kind of message boards dealing with gaming, even though it was a big thing, you got banned, you got your account suspended. The moderators just went kind of crazy. And then as the story began to unfold and you saw these journalists who were colluding with each other to put forth a particular narrative, and also to gatekeep certain stories to ensure that they did not reach the mainstream. And on top of all of that, there was this this progressive, quote unquote, whenever I say progressive, I always just presume I'm using air quotes.
Okay.
This progressive tendency to whenever there is a minority, it could be a racial minority or a sexual minority,
Okay.
or a perceived oppressed group such as women, whenever they would say, no, I actually agree with what these people are saying. Like I don't need to read a review of a game, and it doesn't need to be a commentary on the state of our society. Are the graphics good? Does it play well?
Does the story like make sense?
Is it a fun game? Is it a great story? Is it basically a great experience as a gamer? And if it is, then no one cares. But anyone who said that, we were ignored. I mean, there was a whole hashtag, not your shield, but we were ignored. We were dismissed. And I think what a big moment for me was realizing that there's only one kind of narrative allowed. And I would read these stories about how Gamergate was this right-wing hate campaign fueled by angry white men of the right wing who were just obsessed with getting women out of video game development. And I'm like, that's just a lie. And then I would get into these arguments with people on Facebook who were talking about this. I mean, it just the story began to spiral out of control, and I'm here being like, actually knowing what the issues are and what it's about, being lectured to by people who have no idea. They've only swallowed what's been reported on it and what continues to be reported on it to this day.
Man,
and so that was a big wake up moment for me. But I mean, I think even before then, I begun kind of going down the rabbit hole. I mean, part of it was just, I started lifting weights for one, and I noticed that for some reason I was getting more attention from the opposite sex, and but I was always told that women wanted nice guys who treated them well and were just were their friends, and so a lot of. And just embracing more masculine energy and activities. I got more work as an actor, to be frank, but the changes I began to see in my life, the way that my values shifted, the way that my mind began to shift, I began to feel increasingly that I just didn't really belong. I felt more alienated from the entertainment industry in a lot of ways. So I just began to kind of shut down. And I wouldn't get into any sort of deep conversations. Oftentimes you're in rehearsal studios and you're going over the script. You're trying to work out different beats and story moments. You're discussing character. You're discussing, where we want the scene to go in collaboration with the director and the other actors and the writer if they're alive. And you just kind of learn to shut your mouth and not really offer your true opinions, which could provide some texture for a scene or set people's ideas off in a different direction. And you just hear people say things, particularly during the Trump era. People just had complete meltdowns. And I think that was another kind of step for me off the quote unquote plantation, so to speak, where I just said, there's clearly a split between what these people my professional colleagues believe is happening and what's actually happening on the ground. I mean, one of my favorite examples was a play that I was doing around election time in Hartford, Connecticut, where, we were doing this play and we had a barber that we would go to help, shape us up for the plays. And there was a black man, a son of a Jamaican farmer who apparently had like maybe a third grade education, but he knew how to kind of do math and work hard. So he was able to provide for his family and, move to the States and everything. And this was the first person that ever told me in person that he was voting for Donald Trump. This is a black man, and his friend sitting, a few feet away is just nodding and smiling. And this barber, his whole concern, he was a multiple business owner, and it was purely economic. And then I would go lift weights at the YMCA near where we were rehearsing, and the white guys there, they were talking about jobs and the market. So there were purely economic concerns at play for a lot of people. But then I would go into rehearsal and it was all about, well, racism this and, fascism that. And I said, there's something else that's going on here, something else going on here. And then I had an epiphany one night. I was kind of stoned and walking around this apartment that I was staying in. And I had this moment where I said, oh my God, the Democratic Party in general, and maybe even the left in a broader sense, they do not want to acknowledge me. I'm invisible to them because I'm of no use to them, because I'm not easily manipulable by all of their racial pot stirring.
Yep.
And once I really realized that, you know, I mean, that they could basically care less whether I lived or died, because I don't go along with the narrative. That was sort of a big breaking moment for me. Like, you can't be self-possessed, you can't be happy, you can't be self-actualized as a minority, and also be, I feel, a diehard Democrat now, because they are enthralled. They're maybe even ensorcelled, one might say, by this ideology that says that all people who are not white or fair-skinned are living under the constant oppression and fear and threat of being harassed and held down by fair-skinned people. I'm like, you know, like, these people ain't you. I mean, no offense, Adam, but you ain't superior to me. You know what I mean?
I believe it.
I tell people,
and you're not superior to me. No one is,
man. Like, you know, you take people on an individual basis. It's like, are you cool? Are you not? Are you good at your job? Do you have something to offer? Like, you know,
meritocracy.
Do we have like, you know, shared personal interests and so on and so forth? And that's how I evaluate things.